Good evening, everybody. It is the Tingles. I am one of your hosts, Bob Mills. I'm along here with my brother from another mother. Who are you?
I'm Mike McDonald, one of many Mike McDonalds.
Well, you're the best Mike McDonald.
But I'm the Mike McDonald, yeah, I guess, if you look at it that way.
Tonight, we've got an awesome, interesting guest, a guy named David Goldman, who came through our office recently and shared sort of a little bit of his life story. And I was like, oh my gosh, we got to get this guy in. I'm not going to give too much away, but he's a photographer. He's been around the world. He's photographed musicians. He's created some of the most well-known album art covers of the last, I want to say, 2.5 decades, maybe 3. And he just seems like a really interesting dude. He showed up here in Nova Scotia. He's living and working here, and we've got David Goldman coming on, and I'm gonna invite him in shortly. But it should be a really cool conversation.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome, let's get into it. David, how are you?
Hi, Bob.
It's great to see you again.
It's nice to see you as well.
It is awesome to have you on here, and we just gave a brief description of your accolades, but we know a little bit about you, but not a lot. And this is going to be almost like we're having a beer for the first time and we're going to talk music. It's going to be great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, we had a brief conversation. You were in Nova Scotia, but you've got such an interesting story to tell.
Well, I'm from Toronto originally. I grew up in Toronto, and I moved to Los Angeles in the year blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
And I did a little bit of assisting in Toronto. I went to Sheridan College in Oakville for photography. And then I did a little bit of assisting in Toronto. And then, I don't know, like a heartbroken thing. And I was meant to go on a travel across America with this girl that I was dating. She lived in New York. And, she
broke your heart
with me. She stepped on my heart, and then she did a jig. And I was like, well, this was kind of the beginning of how I think about things. But I was like, well, if we're not going to go together, I'm just not going to sit at home and, not have experiences. I wasn't so cognitive of that choice, but I knew whatever. So I did a road trip. I had gone to Europe after high school, and I met a couple of dudes there. And one of them was living in Aspen at the time. And he was a ski bum. And in the winter he skied, and in the summer he just washed windows for like really rich people. And we hadn't spoken in a couple of years, but in that period of time when I was like heartbroken, he just happened to call me and he was like, dude, you should come. He was like a real California dude. He's like, dude, you just come to Aspen, man. It's wicked. And I was like, okay, can I bring my dog? And he's like, fuck yeah. So I just got in the car and I drove to Aspen, and I had my mountain bike on the roof and my dog and my camera gear. And I got to Aspen, and I was like, man, this is like a pretty cool hang. I literally this shows how old I am, but I literally pulled up the day that the slow speed O.J. Simpson car chase was on. I pulled into his house and all these people.
Oh my God.
And they're all like gathering around the TV, and I'm like, what are you guys watching? And they're like, the fucking OJ. He's a car chase. And I was like, well, he's not going very fast. It doesn't seem very intense. So anyway, I hung out in Aspen for a bit, and there was kind of this pivotal time. I thought, man, I could just live here. This could be my life. I could just, marry some rich chick maybe one day, and
I'm
wash your windows.
Yeah, watching. I'm picturing you and Terry. Is it Terry? Not Terry Hatcher. Who was the girl in Dumb and Dumber? The lady in Dumb and Dumber, and he's walking around in the ski boots and like.
Oh, I know.
Samsonite.
Samson, yeah, Mary Swanson. I know. Yeah. I can't remember the actress's name, but I was thinking of you, David, walking around with her, living your life in Aspen, but
giving out IOUs for Lamborghinis and things.
Yeah, totally.
275,000. Hang on to that one.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, I hung out there for like a month or so. And then I was young. I was like 24, and I was too motivated. Like, I just couldn't sit there. I needed to get on with my life. I knew I wanted to be a photographer. And so anyway, I made my way to LA, and I started to assist in LA. And when I got there, I'm not going to tell too long of a story, but basically I had an uncle there. My uncle was a successful television writer, and he knew a few people. he made one call for me. His son, my cousin, went to this school called Crossroads, which is like a very kind of hip, cool private school in Santa Monica where a lot of celebrities' kids go.
Yeah.
And he called this one guy called Bob Merlis, and who Bob was a very, very major publicist at Warner Brothers Music. And he called Bob, and because they were like fathers of kids at the same age, you know. So he said, "This is how my uncle would talk." He would go, "Bob, give my nephew a job." Like,
Just do it. Do it now. Don't ask questions. Right? There's no resident.
Be on the pickleball court Saturday, 3:00.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
Talk to you later.
And, total nepotism, like nepotism, 100%. I'm just a white dude with nepotism. I don't know what to say. And anyway, he goes, okay, and he gives me this job. And remember, I just kind of gotten out of school. I was really new. And he goes, go do a publicity photo of this guy called Van Dyke Parks. Do you know who Van Dyke Parks is?
Of course.
This guy does. I do not. Tell me who Van Dyke Park is. I should know.
Writing partner of Brian Wilson for the Smile album.
Oh my goodness. Mike is glowing right now. Mike is so excited that you did this.
And did all the orchestration and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think he was involved with Little Feat, and like he was just in that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And so
had his own solo career and
so I shot this thing. It was called
Orange Crate Art.
Orange Crate Art.
Yeah, I've got the album.
That was
somewhere.
the album that I shot some publicity. I definitely didn't shoot the album cover for it, but I went to his house. I didn't really know who he was. I didn't know really anything. I knew it had something to do with the Beach Boys, but I didn't really know what. Anyway, I did this shot. It was very like conservative, you know, like it was just could have been like a corporate headshot. It wasn't very rock and roll, put it that way. And anyway, I did that shot and I felt totally out of my depth, like completely out of my depth. What am I doing? I had no business doing that at all. But then he introduced me to Bob, connected me to another publicist who kind of handled more inter-business corporate headshots and live stuff. And she just started giving me some work for that. But then I started to assist more. I kind of stopped shooting because I didn't feel ready. And I just started to assist, and I started to assist. I got on a list for this. Maybe you guys know there's this makeup brand called Smashbox. And Smashbox was owned by, you've heard of Max Factor?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So Max Factor was this big makeup guy in Hollywood, like a Hollywood makeup dude from the 40s and 50s. So his grandsons, Davis and Dean Factor, opened a big photo studio called Smashbox Studios, where photographers would come from New York or LA, whatever, and they would do the big shoots. They do the Vanity Fair, the Esquires, all these big shoots. So I managed to get on the list for assistants. So if a photographer came from New York or Paris or whatever, and they needed a local assistant, or an assistant, whatever, if they weren't bringing their own, I would be on the list and whatever, and I would get called. Oh, like so and so needs an assistant. Can you assist? Can you assist this guy Wayne Mazer? He's shooting Johnny Depp for Esquire. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm busy.
Yeah, no can do, man. I got to.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did that for a long time, and then I graduated from that. At a certain point, you have to decide: you're gonna have to jump out of the tree? You're gonna have to fly, and sometimes it's very difficult because when you're an assistant, if you're doing well, it's a pretty good gig. It might be physically hard, and you might take some grief from the photographer if they're an asshole, but you're making money. You're eating well. You're eating catered food. You're meeting celebrities. It's a pretty good gig, right?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you stop, you're like, psh, it's like if you work for a company and you're the guy with the credit card who's taking people out to eat all the time, and you think these people are your friends, and then you don't have that job anymore, and you realize they're not your friends. They were just, you were just the guy with the credit card. So it's not quite as dramatic as that, because you certainly, if you're smart, you will have made contacts. You will have connected with art directors and creative directors and art buyers and guys like you, Bob. They'd be like,
Yeah.
so
Oh
yeah,
God,
so,
not guys like Bob.
Guys like me.
that's really that's the goal. If you're smart, you're doing it that way.
Yep.
And the photographer knows that. I mean, it's not a secret. It happens that way. And that's what I did. I mean, I like to think I was smart. I was very, I say opportunistic, but not as an asshole. I just like tried to take every opportunity I could to do better, to try to make inroads. And so when I would be working on music shoots with photographers, I would be trying to connect with art directors, and they're like, oh, well, as you're building your book, as you're doing creative work for your portfolio, let me know when you got cool stuff. Come and talk to me, because it's incumbent upon them to meet new people that are new creatives, right? So they don't want to be stuck working with the same people all the time. So I made connections with different art directors and creative directors. And I mean, what I'm getting at is like how I kind of, with the Blink album, but so I had met this one art director from MCA when I was working with another photographer, and he said, just come show me your shit as it goes. And so I was very proactive, and I used to test a lot for my book, like do these creative ideas that I had in my head. And because I was working, like there was all these other assistants and apprentices, the makeup assistant and the stylist assistant and all these different assistants. So we would work together as kind of like a next level, like AAA level crew. And so I would be like, oh, I want to do this shoot with like this sort of Japanimation idea, and I want to build sets and do all these crazy cartoons. And one dude would be like, oh yeah, man, I can fucking totally paint that for you. And the makeup artist, oh my God, yeah, I totally want to do makeup, and I'll get wigs and it'll be really cool. And so you build this whole thing up. And then over time, and I was very inspired or influenced by like Saturday Evening Post. And I love these 1940s, very, very, very stylized shots. And in LA, you're really lucky because you have these like prop houses and like wardrobe houses where you could just walk up and down, like these wardrobe places. Like you go to Universal, like Universal Studios, Universal Films, and go in their wardrobe department, and like it's like a football field of and it's fucking this narrow, and it's so inspiring, and you can just see, oh my God, look at that amazing, beautiful, incredible dress and that incredible suit, and like these cufflinks, and they make you think of ideas to shoot, or certainly I did, because I would do almost like little tableaus. So that's how I got the Blink job, because one day the guy said to me, he just called me and he's like, oh, I'd already taken in my work over a period of time. And then he said, he just called me, like, do you want to shoot this album cover? And I didn't know the band and whatever, but I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
When David and I met for like, I want to say 25 minutes, the conversation we were having was super stimulating. And then you mentioned this and I was like, holy shit, like that album cover you're talking about, which is Blink 182's Enema of the State, happens to be one of like what I consider the most memorable album covers of the last few decades. It really is one of those standout things. Now, I don't know if it just because it hit when we were the right age and the right time, but I do think it's very, very memorable. And so, yeah, as you get into that, I just wanted people to know, like, that's what we're talking about. It's it's Blink 182's, and that was their biggest record, I think, that they would ever have. Probably, I imagine. I can't remember if the album after that was bigger. I think this was probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest.
Yeah, it was successful, but but I didn't know. I think I told you, like, I didn't really know the band and whatever, but that was just sort of my progression. Anyway, then I worked in music for quite a while, and I shot bands like Muse and the Flaming Lips and Him and Joss Stone and I don't know, a bunch of bands, whatever. And then the music industry started to take a hit from Napster and downloading. And it became very clear to me that I didn't want to go down with this ship. And I had always wanted to live in New York ever since that girl broke my heart. And I couldn't even look at New York for so long. I was like, fuck, I couldn't even watch a Woody Allen movie. That was before he was canceled. And so but then at the time I was like, all right, I want to move to New York. I don't have my dog died. My girlfriend and I broke. I was just like, I was cool. All I needed to do was sell the car and pull the pin. And then I moved to New York, and I shot a bit of music when I got there, and then I kind of switched more into shooting documentary work and portrait work. Like I always did portraiture, but I switched to more documentary, and I had an opportunity to go to Ethiopia and do a story on obstetric fistula, which is a birthing injury. I think I may have mentioned that to you, Bob, when I met you.
Yeah, you did. Not in depth, but yeah, you did.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. It was my first sort of documentary photojournalist kind of experience. And it's a birthing injury where the baby dies 100% of the time, and the woman is left incontinent and sometimes partially paralyzed. And it's basically the women they're very young, they're very skinny, they're not developed, and they don't have access to like maternal health care. So they're living in these rural villages. And I met these two young women who were about 20 at the time, and they had both lost their babies like 5 years earlier. And they were basically rotting in their hut, like just pissing and shitting. They had no control of their bowels or their bladder. And a missionary had picked them up and took them to Addis Ababa, the capital. And they had a successful surgery. It's like an episiotomy. Like if you have a baby and you kind of rip from your front to your back, they sew it up, and it's called an episiotomy. And the surgery is kind of similar. It's relatively simple, but if you don't have access to it, you can't get it done. So I met these two young women after they had their surgeries, and I basically sort of took them home. I found a driver and an interpreter, and we drove like 1,000 kilometers through like this, really crazy roads, and it reunited them with their family. And it was like very moving for me and very powerful. And I shot all this stuff. And from that, UN Women hired me to go to India and Bangladesh to do a story for the Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women. And then when I was in India at that time, it kind of opened up all of these new things to me, like these experiences and these stories. I kept seeing all these, it's so foreign for somebody from here to go to India for the first time. It's really overwhelming on your senses. I found it amazing and beautiful and incredible. But everywhere I looked was like another photo story. So that's a little bit about me. And then
you started the sort of, what was it with COVID? I think you started this motorcycling thing and drove through Nova Scotia on path to everywhere else, and decided this was the place you wanted to be.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I had started this very, very lightly. A long time ago, I had a rep in Toronto, and it was like one of the previous downturns in the economy. And she's like, look, man, you just got to keep shooting. You got to go find things to shoot. And you just got to be shooting, even if there's no work to be had. And so I kind of adopted that mentality that, I'm always looking for something to shoot. I want to be creatively stimulated. And so I had been riding motorcycles for a bit, and I met a guy at one of the big companies called Climb. And I just asked him if he would do an introduction to me to Honda, because I was inspired by the old ads, you meet the nicest people on a Honda. And I had this idea, this like crazy idea. I wanted them to give me a motorcycle, and I would travel around the world, and I would do portraits, and I would use GPS and audio and do interviews. And I would create like this, show how motorcycles, this is what I learned in India, how motorcycles are in developing countries are used as a utilitarian tool, versus in the West, how it's a luxury item. And I wanted to sort of show and compare and contrast. And I wanted to show this more esoteric connection that people had to bikes versus just like, yeah, my cousin rides, it's really cool. Like there's something far more there. Anyway, I got an intro to Honda. I pitched them this thing. I floated out of this meeting. I thought, holy shit, they're going to give me a bike. It's crazy, da, da, da. And then they ghosted me. And I thought, well, fuck it. I'm just going to shoot this stuff on my own anyway. And I started to shoot these portraits, and then COVID happened. And I thought, I was riding this cool old Triumph Thruxton. And I thought, well, I need a more versatile bike. So I sold that bike and I bought an adventure bike, and I wanted to do a proof of concept. Could I actually ride the bike? Could I meet people? Could I do these interviews? Could it actually like be feasible to use a bike as a mobile photo studio? And so I did this sort of 2,000 or something mile trip in Northern California. I was living in LA. I moved to LA just before COVID. And so I was on lockdown in LA. and I just I was like California and Oregon and Washington and Wyoming and New Mexico and Colorado and Arizona. Well, it's kind of like Big D. And I shot like a bunch of people. It was awesome. Anyway, then the following summer, I think I had mentioned to you that my mom got sick not the summer, in March, and she passed away very quickly. And I was like many people when they're dealing with grief, they just need to kind of get away, you know. And in one sense, it was lucky I didn't have maybe it was good and bad. Maybe like I don't have a family. I don't have a wife or kids or anything. So I didn't have any responsibilities again to stay around. I inherited a bit of money, not crazy money, just like, so I didn't have to worry about work at that moment. And I got on the bike and I just rode, and I rode for 4 months. It was like Neil Peart, just driving around, and I did the southern US, basically from LA to Maine. And then I came into New Brunswick, and then I did a little tour of Grand Manan, and I came to Nova Scotia. And I was like, holy shit, it is so beautiful here. It's like crazy. I was in Mahone Bay, and I was riding around, and I was like, fuck, I just can't believe how nice it is. And I bought an old house. I spent the summer fixing it up. And then this past summer, I went to Europe for 3 months to continue the motorcycle portraits. And now I'm here in that's it. That was a long story.
Oh my god! What an amazing, like, I think it's always interesting for people from Nova Scotia to be like, you know, to hear from other people who are coming. And there's obviously a lot more coming than there ever has been before, because it just seems like the hot place to be. But it wasn't for a very long time. So I'm always amazed when somebody's like, oh yeah, I was down in LA and then I came to Nova Scotia, and it's so beautiful there. And I'm thinking, are you fucking sure? Like, it's pretty beautiful down there too. Like, are you sure you want to come this way? But like,
well, when I'm looking out the window with the snow, I'm like, it'd be kind of nice to know.
Oh yeah, totally.
Exactly.
Yeah, you be careful. Yeah, exactly. Be careful what you wish for. You know, we're in the throes of winter with the new snowfall. But well, let's do song number one. Like, we can. Why don't we play it, and then you can come back and tell us why it's important. What do you got for us?
All right. So my first song is Tom Waits from the album Frank's Wild Years, and the song is Cold, Cold Ground. So to me, I had kind of, in an amorphous sense, I was like 17. Take your mind back. I'm like 16, 17. My buddy Dave, his sister and brother-in-law lived in New York. He's like, you want to go to New York? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to go to New York. So we go on this trip. We're like these little kids. Well, not little. We're like teenagers, right? I don't know fuck all about New York. I don't know I don't know anything about the city. And his sister is a couple years, well, she's obviously more than a couple years old. She's probably like maybe 7 or 8 years older than us, because she's married, but she's probably in her early 20s, maybe early to mid 20s. I can't remember. Anyway, she has Frank's Wild Years on a CD. And I was like, oh, I always wanted this. So I tape it, like I put it on I get a blank tape and I tape it. And to me, the first sound, a lot of these songs, like the first note is what kind of hooks me. And this song is New York to me. It's inextricably New York in a more grimy time. It just changed everything for me about music. Like, I think until that time, I was listening to kind of the Doobies and just whatever was your friends were listening to, and you thought you were creative, whatever. I listened to Jethro Tull and the Stones and Yes and whatever, you know. And then I heard
flute,
and then I heard Tom Waits, and it just like put me on another path. And anyway, so yeah. And there's a great line. I think it's in Cold, Cold Ground, where he says, "Make a pile of Trump towers and burn them all down." And I just was like, you know, it's so awesome. Anyway,
I honestly don't know if I've heard it, which is the beautiful part about it. I'm excited to get into this. So let's do, here we go. This is Cold, Cold Ground by Tom Waits.
Crestfallen sidekick in an old cafe. Never slept with a dream before he had to go away. There's a bell in the tower Uncle Ray brought around. out the army in the cold, cold ground. Cold, cold ground. Cold, cold ground. Cold, cold ground. Now don't be a crybaby when there's wood in the shed. There's a bird in the chimney and a stone in my bed. When the road's washed out, we pass the bottle around and wait in the arms of the cold, cold ground. The cold, cold ground. The cold, cold ground. The cold, cold ground. There's a ribbon in the willow, there's a tire swing rope, and a briar patch of berries taking over the slope. The cattle sleep in the mailbox and we'll never go to town till we bury every dream in the cold, cold ground. In the cold, cold ground. The cold, cold ground. In the cold, cold ground. In the cold, cold ground. Rifle and a whole box of shells. Blow the roof off the goat barn, let it roll down the hill. The piano is firewood, Times Square is a dream. I found we'll lay down together in the cold, cold ground. The cold, cold ground. The cold, cold ground. In the cold, cold ground. We'll call the cops on the breedloves, bring a Bible and a rope, and a whole box of Breville and a bar of soap. Make a pile of trunk tires and burn them all down. Bring $1 with you, baby, in the cold, cold ground. 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 Take the weather vane rooster throwing rocks at his head. Stop talking to the neighbors until we all go dead. Beware of my temper and the dog that I found. Break all the windows in the cold, cold ground. 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 In the cold, cold ground.
Man, there's some weight in that voice. Do you have some more you want to share with that song? I mean, it's funny when I listen to it, I think that's what's cool about music. Like you probably were listening to it a lot in your early New York days. I don't picture New York when I'm listening to it. It feels very like, I don't know if it's just lyrically, the content feels like it's almost like, rural sort of environment and like, just like, the repetitive of that lyric and sort of like, I'd have to go and investigate. Like what's the story behind the song? Do we know?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of it just seems like this, talking about like burying all your dreams. I just feel, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it means. To me, it seems like the struggle of New York. Like it's that city will fucking grind you down.
Yeah.
And forget it all. And like, I don't, and also because I heard it in New York. I think of Tom Waits of New York, even though he's actually from California, but it also for me was this sort of, a lot of the music I talk here were these sort of first times I heard these artists as well. And so they, I don't know, just for me, it represents this time in my life, this almost like this major change in how I was like from like the music you're fed as a kid from your social group or whatever to being exposed to something different that is like just fucking changes the way you think about music, or even like opening up your mind to how you might think about other music. You know, like I didn't know you could do that. I know you could sing like that and still, you know, not sound awful.
Right. Yeah.
That's for me.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly mentions Times Square. Like it obviously anchors in that location. It's funny when I'm listening to it, if I close my eyes when I'm listening to it, the weight of his voice, the instrumentation, the accordion, like it's almost got like, I picture what's that movie, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, like that, like you know, the two guys traveling on the train, like that kind of like
hobo lifestyle.
Hobo lifestyle. But I mean, you know, and that's that's sort of where my mind goes if I had to paint a picture based on the sound alone. But so cool.
I was just going to say with the accordion in there, it almost sounds a little bit like the band.
Yeah,
you could almost picture the band doing a similar song. Obviously, the vocals be a lot different, but the sound of the song has that rollicking sort of. I think it's the accordion gives it that rollicking sound that you could picture the band playing that on one of their early 70s albums. The other vibe I get from that is when you were saying, Bob, almost more of a maybe a western, like a spaghetti western theme. You know, like I think of Nick Cave, Red Right Hand, from the
Peaky Blinders, yeah.
It's interesting. There's Nick Cave is coming up later on.
Oh, okay. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Yeah,
but I get it has that same sort of vibe, you know, like of that song. But I have a couple of Tom Waits albums. I don't have this album, and I haven't heard this song from him before. He's one of those guys that, for me, a little bit like Neil Young and Bob Dylan. They're fantastic songwriters, great artists, but I can only take them singing their own songs in small doses.
Yeah,
after I heard like, you know, an album, it's like, okay, I'll put him away for a bit and listen to something else. You know, I think it's the voice. It's something about the voice. I like it, but I have to be in the right mood for it. And then after a while, it's like, okay, I'll move on to something else. But other artists covering his songs, like he's got so many songs that have been covered by other artists. And you know, sometimes it's the cover versions are almost, I shouldn't say they're better than his versions, but they're
more accessible.
More accessible might be the right word. So I can listen to him, but it's a challenge to sit and listen to a couple of his albums in a row, you know, back to back, listen to your stuff, even though it's great. His music's great. The songs are all great. He's a fantastic songwriter. But like I said, I have the same problem. A friend of mine's a big Bob Dylan fan, and he'll hate me for saying this, but I have the same problem when I listen to Bob Dylan. I can listen to him for a bit, and it's like, okay, I got to put his nasally voice away for a while and listen to something else.
Yeah, totally. It's not a soothing necessarily voice, but I always find like Tom Waits, he does have that kind of hobo vibe. Like his songs are these stories that you could imagine somebody living in the Dust Bowl and just like going train to train and like living like that. He really sort of paints that picture. So it makes sense that that's the kind of how you see that too.
Yeah, it's the cadence. Like even as we're talking here, my head is still bobbing from that song because there's a consistent cadence for 4 minutes of like, and it's almost like almost like a train, sort of like it's got that momentum to it. And I love hearing songs like this where there's such a beauty in the simplicity of it. It's like sometimes you hear music and you're like, oh my fuck, there's look how many notes are in that, how many chords are in that, like. There's a complexity, and then a songwriter like Tom Waits comes along and you listen to it and you're like, it's so beautiful in its simplicity. Even though it's not a simple song, it's still like it's not bogged down by other stuff making it complicated. It really is. It is to the roots, right? Like and yeah, I can sort of picture it now that I've heard that once. I think I'm gonna be like walking around the house like this week, just sort of like listening to that. You can just sort of hear it, of them just sort of pushing you along, you know. Like,
that's a good intro album. I mean, it got me. It's not his first album by any means, but it's a good intro to Tom Waits because he used to back in the day in the early '70s had a very like normal sounding voice. And then he just went like became like vodka and tonic, you know, and it just changed. And that's how he's been for 35 years or whatever. But there was a first few albums where he's just like a crooner, you know, he sounds, he's really, you know, like a piano man.
Quite clean. Yeah.
Yeah. Super clean. And then it just changed. But anyway, so it's,
that's a great first track, David. That's wicked. I love it.
Cool.
Well, let's go on to song number 2.
Song number 2. Now I've always really been drawn to female singers. I love Kate Bush, and I'm just drawn to female singers. I also like that kind of what are they like, just E tuning, that just sort of like melancholy sound. I'm always drawn to, like, I used to listen to Uncle Tupelo, and Uncle Tupelo split into Wilco and Sunvolt. And for the longest time, I was always on the Sunvolt side. I didn't like Wilco at all, but I love Wilco now. But I love the sort of depression and sort of, they called it no depression music. And I love that kind of vibe. But so anyway, the next up, I feel like a DJ. And next.
Here we go.
Coming at you.
Yeah.
Sunday. So this is a Canadian artist, a woman, Mary Margaret O'Hara. Do you know her?
Oh, I don't know if I do. This is exciting.
I know the name. I might know the song when I hear it.
So Mary Margaret O'Hara is Catherine O'Hara, the actress.
Oh my, yeah.
Her sister.
Oh.
And she only put out one album in 98, and it's called Miss America. And I don't know how I heard it the first time. I do not know. But there are 2 songs on that album, and I will just listen to one. I'll tell you both. But there are 2 songs that they vie in my brain for like transcendent beauty. Like they're so, the first note can almost make me cry. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about it. I'm sure there, like, some musicologist could say that the combination of these notes or whatever, they hit you a certain way. So the 2 songs are Year in Song and A New Day. But let's listen to Year in Song. And basically, this song just makes you want to sway back and forth, almost in a trance from the first note. I'd never heard anything like it. And the quote, "Joy is the aim," is like a mantra that is waiting to be spoken, is how I think of it, which is like my hippie side coming out, which I don't really feel myself as. But anyway, that's the song, Year in Song.
Here we go. It's Year in Song, Mary Margaret O'Hara.
That's a pretty wild song, eh?
That's a wild song. It was not what I expected at all. But I've been on a huge REM kick recently, and I'm like, this sounds so much like like the cadence of Michael Stipe, and
that's true.
And I was just looking it up, and it looks like he brought her on stage and basically said she was a national treasure back in the day. Like,
did he?
There's a bunch of artists that have basically labeled her as a huge influence, and
she is like loved by many.
And I've never heard it.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. Like I feel like most people haven't. It's like one of these songs that like it just feels like she is possessed by the music. Like you could just imagine her just fucking dancing crazy, like speaking in tongues almost. Like it's so, I don't know, like cathartic.
Yeah. It's almost like a spoken word sort of poetry.
Yeah.
And just it's just so unique, and the music as well is really cool.
It's a great guitar riff, eh?
Yeah, the music was excellent. Yeah, it was interesting the way it's hard to tell when you're listening to it if she's. At first, I thought, okay, she's angry about the state of the music industry. So she's singing about the type of music that's being produced when she talks about wind-up toys and wind-up noise or something like that. So sounds like she's saying, okay, everything's pre-programmed. But then by the end of the song, it almost sounds like she's taking so much joy from the music, she's orgasmic.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not sure if she's feeling pleasure or pain, or, it's a protest song about the state of music and she's complaining about the noise, or if it's actually like one of those sort of, there's so much noise, but, it hurts so good type of thing. It's really difficult to say where she's coming from it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never thought about it that way. I never thought about, to me, it's always been like this, I don't even know if I ever thought so deeply about it. Just I always hear about the joy, right? Like it just, to me, I'm picking up like the joy of music, the joy of expression, and that like really fundamental sort of, like non-language. It's how music can make you feel.
I wasn't following along with the lyrics while I was listening to it. I have to go back and listen to this again with the lyrics in sheet. Mike, you're picking that up. Are you picking that up from your first listening to the lyrics, or are you reading the lyrics as well?
I read the lyrics. I mean, no, I didn't.
Okay. I was like, how did you fucking even make out what she was saying? It was like all over the place.
Yeah, dude, you're a musicologist.
Yeah.
This at Harvard.
Exactly. Yeah. Mike's got a really big degree in music, so
I'm an idiot savant without the savant part, just the idiot part.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to song number 3.
So this is a band that I got to the point, I'm kind of at the point where I maybe don't know. I may have not listened to every band out there that sort of is in my type of music that I would listen to, but I am very surprised when I hear of a band that I've never heard of, that may have multiple albums, like they're established. And I immediately like them. I'm like, how the fuck have I not heard of this band?
Yeah.
So this band, I have a good friend in LA. His name's Mike Coulter, and he was in a band called Lifter in the 90s, I guess. One day he played this music, and I'm like, who the fuck is that? And he's like, and so here it is. Have you heard of the band 16 Horsepower?
I have not, actually.
I don't think so, which is a great thing because I love hearing new shit.
So the album I would look at is it's called Sackcloth in Ashes, and it's the first song, I Seen What I Saw. And so the story of these guys is they're a Denver band, and I forget the guy's name, but his dad was like a preacher, very like door to door crazy preacher shit, and the music feels like they're going to be like speaking in tongues with the snakes and the whole thing. And it's like, and I was like, this is bonkers music. This is crazy. And I fucking love it. So yeah.
All right. I love this. I feel like I'm getting a taste for it now. Okay. I Seen What I Saw. Is that what we're going for?
Yeah.
By 16 Horsepower. Here we go. Holy fuck.
That could also be the theme for Peaky Blinders.
That's pretty wild, eh?
That's an amazing song.
It's an amazing song.
How have I not heard of that song or that band before?
That's what I said.
His voice is crazy.
Yeah.
And I've heard a voice like that in some, I can't remember the band. There's another band right now that's, I think, popular maybe in the UK or something. And I've heard that kind of voice, but this is so much earlier than, like, it's so interesting. And all I could think of is when that song started, I was like, somebody's gonna fucking die here. Like,
yeah,
it's
that's
like
right.
somebody's going down. Like, there's some shit going down.
And
what's interesting,
all of
though,
this shit sounds like that. It's all a variable of that.
With
That's
that
awesome.
sort of like bending guitar part, and like, oh my god, fuck. Okay.
And the that almost military style snare.
Yeah.
Snare all the way through it. What I've noticed in all three songs you played so far is that they all have a very hypnotic beat.
Yes, they do.
They all have that same like every song has that same, like you were saying, I think before the second song, Mary Margaret O'Hara's song about swaying in your seat. All three of these songs have that same hypnotic kind of beat to them. This one has a very similar sound to the Tom Waits song as well, the first song. And again, I hear a lot of that Nick Cave, Red Right Hand, same kind of dark spaghetti western sound to it. But excellent song. My God, I just like, I'm blown away that I've not heard that before.
I'm glad you are having the same reaction that I had, because that's very much like I was just like, how is it possible that I have not heard this? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And it's strange enough that I would have thought,
right.
I heard it. Some dude, have you heard this band? They're kind of crazy, whatever, you know.
They called it. I just read a little bit. They called it like gothic country rock, which I could probably
I can get that.
Or progressive country. The jazz drumming is so cool, and just it is. There is a hypnotic sort of dark. There's like a darkness to all the songs so far, which is like, it's funny because some of the Tingles songs that would traditionally be in my category of would be, I want to say they're just like they're like
major keys,
right? And whereas these are darker, but I'm still getting a really interesting response from just listening to them for the first time, and like and I like it. It really feels like it's just giving me a good feeling. It's great.
That's what I was saying. Like, I feel like I'm drawn to these sort of like that tuning. That's just a little bit, that sort of that more depressing sound. I don't know why I've always been drawn to it. I don't know enough about music, but I remember the first time I heard the mandolin, and I thought, God, what an amazing instrument. And it can be played with like this very, not chipper, but like kind of dark and like Celtic.
Yeah.
Like heavy vibe, and I maybe I chased that dragon. I don't know.
Yeah, no, this is really cool to go through your list so far, because there feels like a theme, and that's great, because sometimes I feel like my theme is so generic. So this is awesome. All right, okay. Wicked.
All right, so now I'm taking you to Nick Cave. So. I didn't know Nick Cave until I lived in LA, and a friend of so when I was friends with this guy, Mike from Lifter, his girlfriend, Fancha, who was a very good friend of mine, Fancha's friend introduced me to Nick Cave. And I had heard about Nick Cave, but for whatever reason, I had never listened to him. Sometimes like I get it in my head, like, oh, I'm not going to be into that kind of music for some reason. I don't know why. Like, and then I hear it, and it changes, my mind about everything. But so this song, I think it's from Abattoir Blues. It's Let the Bells Ring, and I think he talks about. I think this is about someone dying of cancer, and I think this just resonated to me, because I've had a lot of loss in my family with cancer. And so I love the melody, and it's a kind of a haunting song. And the guitar is very it's beautiful, and it's sad, and and it just reminds me of a time in my life. And sometimes I think about, like the people that have died. And the song sort of like, I don't know, like it sort of represents some people for me or whatever. Anyway, that's that.
Let's listen to Let the Bells Ring by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Come on, cancer, let's walk outside. Breathe the autumn air. See the many that ever lived and died. See the unending golden state. See all of us that have come behind, clutching at your hair. All the Arkansas, to your sweet and last amen. Well, let the bells ring. Here's the real thing. Let the bells ring. Here's the real thing. Take this deafening thunder down. Take this bread and take this wine. Your passing is not what we mourn, but the world you've left behind. Well, do not breathe or make a sound, and behold your mighty work. The towers over the uncaring ground, of a lesser, darker world. Well, let the bells ring. Here's the real thing. Let the bells ring. Here's the real thing. Not fit to tie the laces of your shoes, must remain behind to testify to an elementary blues. So let's walk outside, the hours late, through your crumbs and scattered shells, where the odd and the mediocre wait. Barely fit to ring the bells. Well, let the bells ring. Here's the real thing. Yeah, let the bells ring. Here's the real thing.
Another amazing voice.
Yeah. I've been very lucky to see him a bunch of times. And if you can,
oh, really?
Yeah, if you can ever see him, like, do what you got to do. Climb over somebody, and fucking, I don't know if you know the song Stagger Lee, but do what he does in Stagger Lee. just
get there.
Yeah, get there. It's amazing. It's what a show. What a connection he has with the audience. But he also has an amazing newsletter called the Red Hen. I think it's called the Red Hen Files. And
Yes. Yeah.
have you read it? Do you know people send him questions? And
Yeah.
yeah, and they're awesome. Some are very profound, and I'm a big fan.
He's one of those guys. On the last show, we had Simple Minds was played, and I said that I always felt Simple Minds was criminally underrated in North America. Mm-hmm. And Nick Cave is another one of those artists that very few people in North America would know Nick Cave. He has a following, but not to the extent that he probably should have. He's had a 20, 30-year career, like a long career. He's in his 60s now, so he's got to have had 30 plus years in the music industry, and he's got a lot of great songs. I mean, think of the music in that song we just heard. It's really intense. There's a lot going on in there, just very distinctive vocal style, a lot of really great songs, but just never really gained traction in North America. I think one of his bigger hits is that Red Right Hand that we've been talking about, and the name of his newsletter. And just because of Peaky Blinders, I think it became a bit of a hit. But he's one of those the people that like him really like him, but he's not as well known as maybe he should be, based on the volume of music that he's produced and put out there, and the intensity of the music and the style of the music that he has. It's he's got some really great stuff to listen to.
And he was in a band called The Birthday Party, which was like a punk band in his early days. He started.
Okay.
That was like his first band, and he's had a rough couple of years. His two of his children have died. His son is, I think he had twins. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but one of his sons fell off a cliff and died.
Right. Yeah, that's right. He's Australian, but that happened in the UK, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think he lives in the UK, but it happened
in the UK.
And then his first son, from somebody else who was a model. This dude, I think he OD'd last year.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of his music has been about losing his kid, and a lot of the Red Hen Files are a lot about loss, like people writing to him saying, I lost a son, or I lost a child, or just like really heavy shit. And he's very, very he's a great sounding board for people going through tough times, or just the human experience. It's a great.
Even that song has a very that we just listened to has a very I'll say religious, but more of a faith-based feel to it. Just talking about you're not fit to ring the bell, and he's the real thing, and listening to the bell, and not necessarily talking about God or a God, but just a sense of maybe it could be his son he's talking about in that song. Although I think it's before that that time, but it just has that feel. You could be talking with somebody, you're not fit to ring the bell, and this person is the real thing, and they've passed on. But it does have that feel of loss, or that sense of loss, and talking about losing someone great, or a great person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good observation. I think he is. I think he's gone kind of a little bit more religious, but not, but just in his own space. He doesn't proselytize. He's not trying to convince anybody to do it. It's just where he's found his faith or whatever. It's I have no religious connection to really anything, but I can appreciate his understanding of religion and his sharing his point of view about it, because it's not like stuck beside somebody in an airplane and they're fucking preaching.
Yeah, right.
It's a very
it's spiritual without being
it's gentle and generous.
Yeah.
I was just reading, Jarvis Cocker interviewed him in 2010, and he said, this is what Cave said, I believe in God in spite of religion, not because of it. So I think he I guess when you've experienced loss, and even going back to what you said before this, right? There's a when you have those experiences, that seems to be when things, and I've had them myself, when things happen and you're like, that doesn't seem like it would just happen. You know what I mean? There's things that made me start to believe differently. When my grandmother passed, there was an event where not being religious, we went down with your father and mother, Mike, to the church down from where we were living in Toronto. and I paid $5 to light a candle. I've never done that before. And as I was walking out the door, there was $5 on the ground, basically almost like my grandmother was saying, keep your money.
Yeah.
In a weird, but just like,
Yeah.
you're just like, that's weird. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't found $5 ever, and I'm going to find it right in these 15 minutes. It's just like stuff like that. When it happens, it's hard not to think, right, that there's other things going on.
Yeah, that's pretty well.
True.
I really like that. Really great song. Another really great song. David, anything else you want to share on that, or you want to move to song number 5?
So my last band, which is one of my all-time favorite bands that I can never get enough of. I never ever can get enough of this band. All louder than louder, is Tool.
Oh yeah, okay.
I love Tool so much. I was lucky enough to photograph Maynard. My friend is his publicist, and I kind of was done shooting music. But my friend Monica, I said, Monica, please, if there's ever a chance I can shoot Maynard, you just gotta let me do it, And I was living in New York, and he has a vineyard, and so he was in New Jersey at some big wine, I don't know, retailer or whatever, and he was there sort of hucking his wine, and so I went and I did a portrait of him, and
Nice.
And so anyway, so that song is Lateralis from the album Lateralis. And I just love, if I was ever going to like put a tattoo of a saying, this is sort of how I try to live. Like when I turned 40, I remember thinking I want to be able to look back on my life with color. And I wanted to not be crazy, but I wanted to take opportunities that presented themselves to me. I don't want to kill myself, but I don't want to regret shit as much as possible. So I love the line where he talks about reaching out to embrace the random, reaching out to embrace whatever may come. And I just love that. And I love the melody of this song and the rock, and they're a really heavy band, but they're so melodic that I can find myself falling asleep on an airplane listening to them and just like
really
zoning out, no matter how heavy it is. So yeah, that's it. Lateralis.
Here we go. Lateralis by Tool. David, you've won for the longest song ever featured on the Tingles. So
that is, fuck, man. I'm gonna be like, I'm playing thick as a brick.
a 9-minute monster. But no, absolutely, do not be sorry. Actually, you know what? There was another one from Seeger Roast that somebody played, which I think was creeping up around the same time frame. It's just like my simple mind I can't understand how they make that music. It's just so interesting, like so progressive. Like the drumming is just
he's like the greatest drummer. He's the greatest rock drummer. I maybe Dream Theater guy is amazing too, but Neil Peart's dead. So yeah. I mean, the guy's an octopus.
It's insane. It is like just the kick drum alone. I'm like, yeah, is that the kick I'm hearing? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the kick. And then it goes across the toms. I'm like, that's a lot of toms in a very short period of time. Yeah. It's just.
There's a YouTube video where they put the GoPros all over Danny Carey's kit for the song Enema. It's Pneuma, I think.
Yes.
If you want to watch just a banana, cuckoo bananas, that is just everywhere. He's setting off the electron. Oh my God. It's like, you go to a Tool show, it's like Rush used to be. Like the whole front row, they're all drummers.
They're all just watching. Yeah. I think that band, it really does draw people who are into music, in terms of players, like real players. They can appreciate the madness that is involved in that kind of creation. It's just out of this world.
Yeah, that's great.
It's incredible. Well, I mean, we really enjoyed connecting with you. This has been incredible, man. It's been a lot of fun. The songs that you brought today were certainly not on a list that I've ever had, and I'll certainly take them away and listen to them again. And I think it's been just such a joy to get to know you and sort of understand your work and your field and all those things. And I hope this isn't the end. Maybe we'll have to get together for a physical beer.
Yeah, man, I would love that. I really, this is like, I've been super, not to nerd out, but like, this is really cool. I love the premise. I think it's awesome. It's really nice to hear why people like music. Music's such an important part of so many people's lives. It's nice to know how they, I've never articulated the things that I like about music or whatever. So I think it's a really cool podcast. I think it's a really cool idea.
Well, thanks, David. Mike, before we go, Dave, is there anything you want to share? Any websites or anything like that you want to push out there for people to take a look at your work?
I mean, if you want to check out the Motorcycle Portrait, I feel like I'm on Jimmy Kimmel. I got a movie coming out. I'll be playing at Hulu on Wednesday.
Yeah. We're
Here's a little clip right now.
Yeah, ding, ding. Yeah, there you go.
Here's me and Billie Eilish. And I was like, Billie, I don't want to do that. And she's like, just do it. And I'm like, no. And her mom was there. And that fitting. The Motorcycle Portraits is something I've been working on. It's called the motorcycleportraits.net. But if you want to follow on Instagram, it's just the David Goldman photo. And awesome. It's cool.
Well, thanks again. We will look forward to seeing you in the physical space. We are on Zoom right now, and it's nice, but it's always good to get together for the real thing. So thanks again, David.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
All right, David.
All right, take care.
Have a good night.
See you soon, man. Yeah.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.